Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Man, you know what? I think it's funny because in chess, you know, like all the pieces, they don't really look like anything. But, I mean, this is a horse. I don't know, man. Maybe that's just me. But I always want to make it, you know, kind of. Anyways, man, it's besides the point. The point is we got round 7 of the Sinquefield Cup rolling. So I do have the game Maxime Vachier-Lagrave versus Hans Niemann. And so, Wesley So was off today because he was supposed to play Magnus Carlsen, so he pretty much got another off day. So I went ahead and figured I'd grab this game for you guys. If you guys are so inclined to watch it, appreciate it. All of my people, as always, coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking magkaibigan. Magandang umaga to you. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from France, I will say bonjour. Comment ça va? Comment allez-vous? Ça me fait plaisir de te voir, mes amis. Merci beaucoup. Bienvenue. Bon petit déjeuner. If you guys are ready to go, man, without any further ado, let's check a look and see what we got for this game. So we got knight to f3. We don't see that every day. This is starting off as the ready, but almost always when you go knight to f3, it's going to transpose into something else. So we do see the move d5. We got g3, and then we do have the King's Indian attack. As of now, the knight comes to f6. We got bishop to g2. We got c5. And so it's kind of interesting because you kind of see c5 coming even way before d4 comes. But d4 is going to be, I mean, you can go c4 as well, but d4 is definitely going to be one of the best moves to play in the position. Of course, after castles, and we see g6, d4 is going to be definitely one of the best moves. You can also go c4. You pretty much have the similar idea as white. I mean, basically, if you don't do anything, white is going to get, e5 in, and it's pretty much just going to have, like, the best possible center ever. So you have to kind of chip away at that some kind of way. So we do see an immediate d4. So we have pawn takes d4, knight takes d4. We got bishop to g7, and then we have the move c4. Like I said, I mean, you could have played c4 earlier, but you can see that, I mean, this is kind of like a reverse of what we normally see when we see, like, straight d4 openings. You're going to try to use a wing pawn, to try to get your opponent's, center smashed all up. So we do see castles by black. Pawn takes d5, knight takes d5. And you have, I mean, a couple different options here. You can go knight to c3. What we see in the game is knight to b3. So that's definitely a legitimate option as well. We see the move knight over to b4. We got knight up to c3. You have to kind of be careful because if you don't pretty much develop, which is like knight c3 is the most logical move, you can see queen takes, rook takes, and then this rook is going to be kind of sad in the corner. So you got to get developed, man. Knight comes to c3. We see knight a to c6. We got bishop to d2. So we pretty much unraveled ourselves as white. We're good to go. Bishop does come to f5. We see rook over to c1. And we got a nice open file rolling right here. Of course, this is one as well. But, I mean, the rook can come here first. And then we do see rook to c8. So, black and white basically have the same ideas. Pretty elementary. You want to put a rook on a half open or an open file, or one that can become open at some point. We got the move a3, knocking that knight. And then we have knight back to a6. And if only you could go b4. Because, man, if you can get b4 rolling, that poses a real question to these knights just sitting there hanging out right next to each other. One file apart like this. We might have a little bit of pressure on this pawn right here. But we don't have that. We got bishop to e3. We got bishop back to e6. And then we do have the move queen to c2. And it might look kind of strange, but, I mean, putting this queen opposite a rook because, I mean, it's not like the most ideal thing, but this is the best move in the position. It's just getting your queen off of the back rank. I mean, you could have put it on d2, but it's not quite as good. You kind of want to sidestep the queen so that way you can bring this rook over to d1, which is what we see coming up. And then we do see bishop to f5. And, I mean, even though that was maybe a slight worry, that was something you were thinking in your head, you're not really tripping because you got the move bishop to e4. You're like, hey, man, if you want to trade bishops, we could trade bishops, bro. You do see the move queen to d7, and then, like I said, rook f king to d1. And then we do see the move queen to e6. And this kind of allows white to do a little something here in this position. We see bishop taking f5, and then pawn taking f5. If you were to take back with the queen would have took, and you'd be literally in this same exact situation just without these queens on the board. But you have kind of damaged your structure a little bit. I mean, you're pretty safe at the moment because this bishop is protecting all of the weaknesses around your king. But, I mean, you really kind of don't want this file open, though. I mean, your king is like, bro, Protect me, son. So if we go back, after the move queen came to d7, rook f to d1, and then you did have the ability to go into bishop takes e4, and then queen taking e4, and then queen going down. You could have went into this line right here, which is actually slightly better for black. You don't have as much of an attack rolling as you do in the position that we saw. So we do see pawn, like I said, taking f5 right here. And we have actually reached a point in the game that if you do want to pause the video, there is a really, I don't want to say it's a winning move, but it is by far the best move. It's a really, really nice move in the position. You get a really clear advantage as white. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and see if you can spot that move, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So I think that a lot of you guys, like a majority of you guys, about all of you guys, are pretty much thinking, you know, I want to try to get my knights rolling, you know, some kind of way, right? You know, you're like, hey, man, I'm going to get my knights rolling. They're not like doing the best kind of over here, especially this one. So let me just kind of do a little something, something, right? That's exactly what Maxime Vachier-Lagrave decides in the game, that he does make the move knight to d4, but that was not the move I was looking for. I feel like this is actually kind of a counterintuitive move, though. But if you did find it, congratulations. It is the move knight to d5. And like I said, it might look kind of strange at first for those of you that didn't think about it. Because it's like, why am I moving this knight out from in front of my queen? Because you just said moving queen to c2 was, I mean, you know, you're kind of putting it opposite the rook right there, right? Well, yes, but you actually don't have to worry about any discoveries of this knight going anywhere, just literally anywhere, because you do have a really, really nice tactic in the position. If you did want to follow that line, is black. So let's just say, for example, the knight says, hey, I'm going to discover an attack over here on e5. You see the bar shoots way up. Basically, you are in a position where you can actually capture this rook on c8 with your queen. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait a minute, hold on. Rook takes. I just gave up my queen? That doesn't make any sense. Well, you have nice tactics in the position, like I said. If queen takes on c8, you got rook taking c8, and then you have rook taking c8 with check. And you have literally two options. You can just back up the bishop, which is probably suggested more than anything else. Or you can take with the queen on c8, which looks like you can do that, right? Well, the problem is, if you capture on c8 with the queen, bizam, knight takes e7 with check. And you are out of there, bro. I mean, not where you want to be at. You are down in exchange, and you are down a pawn as well, and you got a rook on white side. This is not what you want to be doing. So after the rook took c8, you would probably want to back up with the bishop, like I said, but then the rook would just nicely just slide over to d8, and this knight is coming into the mix because now this knight is protected after you cover this rook. So this is it's crazy because you got a queen as black, but this is completely one as white. So it was really, really nice move to play knight to d5. You definitely, I mean, the best move in the position is rook f to d8 for sure. Or you could have also moved rook c to f8. But just getting this rook on this open file, like I was saying before, is very legitimate. But don't get happy like I'm going to do some discoveries and I'm just going to just win the game, because you're not. You're not going to win the game, bro. Don't do it. So, like I said, we did see the move knight to d4 in the position, and we are just, you know, we're just attacking the queen. We're trying to see if you want to trade on d4. What do you want to do? So the knight does take d4, bishop takes d4, and then we do have the move knight to c5, and then we have bishop takes g7. As I mentioned to you before, it's not like white is completely winning the game, but this was one of the main defenders of all of these dark squares around this king. So if you can eliminate that, you do have a nice little advantage going on. So the king does come to g7 after takes, and I mean, you don't really have all your pieces on that side, so it's not like you're really attacking the king, but if you can muster up your forces, man, I mean, you can kind of get into this king's kitchen and start doing some cooking. So we do see the move a rook over to d5. We got knight over to e4. And you kind of have to be careful in this position because you definitely don't want to be looking at knight takes and then your rook is undefended. So you have to kind of do something about that. So the queen does come to d3. We see rook down to c6, rook over to d1. We got knight taking c3, pawn taking c3, and then rook f goes to c8. And I mean, there's not a whole lot you can really do about this pawn. So either you give it up on c3 or you give it up on c4. So Maxime decides to give it up on c4 so that he can maintain his queen right there. So that way when he captures over here, he's good to go. So the rook does take on c4. You got rook taking f5. You got queen down to e4. You're saying, hey, man, we can trade if you want to. And, I mean, it's not the end of the world really to trade. So queen does take e4, rook takes e4, and then you do get a nice active rook on d7, which is always where you want the rooks. But black, after they kind of make this little move, they do have the ability to protect their pawn here. So it would have either been, kind of a tit for tat situation if that's how you wanted to roll. We do see the move a5. We got rook to g5 with check. The king goes over to f6. We got the rook over to b5, attacking this nice little juicy, pawn over here hanging out by itself. But we do see a rook to e6, and this does defend. So the rook comes down to d4. We see king to g7, a rook to f4, rook to f6. And then we say, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and trade you. So rook takes f6, pawn takes f6. And then we do get this nice juicy pawn on b6. So we are actually a pawn up in this particular situation. So the rook does come down to c3. And, I mean, there's not really a good way to protect this pawn at all. So you counterattack on a6. The rook takes a3, and then you go g4. You got rook to a1 with check. You got king to g2. And we are going to get to a point in the future that I will point something out that's actually pretty important in games. But we do see the move a4. We got h4. We got h6. We got king to f3. And then we do see the move a3. And I think it's at this point, or probably a little while ago, guys are probably wondering, wait a minute, like, there's not a novelty yet? Like, we're like literally like, how many? We're 41 moves in. There's no novelty. The crazy thing is there's actually no novelty in this game. This game has actually been seen before all the way up to this point. So we pretty much get to the end of the game and it's been seen. We do see the move h5. We got rook up to a2. We got king to g3, or rook to a1, king up to f4, rook to a2. We got king down to f3, rook to a1. We got e4. Rook to a2, we do see king stepping over to e3. The rook goes back down to a1. The king goes up to f4. And after rook comes to a2, we do go f3 to protect that pawn. We got rook back down to a1, king to f5, and then we do have a2. And this is the critical point that I was trying to point out to you earlier. Like I said, we still don't have a novelty. I mean, this game has actually, interestingly enough, been seen before. And, the most interesting thing about that is Hans Niemann was born in 2003. The one game that I saw in the database that literally was this exact same position was played in 2003 by John Bartholomew. Crazy. So literally he played this game as Hans Niemann was being born. It's crazy. I like little tidbits like that. It's interesting. But something that I want to point out to you guys here. Whenever you have a situation where your opponent is in front of their pawn that they are trying to queen, one of the most important things is you have to make sure that you do, as far as your king is concerned, is either stay on this rank or make sure that you are shielded by pawns, which is what you see Maxime doing in this particular case. So you don't see Maxime kind of hanging out over here, trying to, kind of move over here, anything like that. He's not out in the open. He is completely shielded with his pawns, right? The problem is if you are, let's just put this, for example, on the board. We don't make that move. Let's say we make this move, right? And, the king, let's say the king goes like that or something like that, right? Bam. Let's say you move here, right? Completely 100% lost. You saw the bar go way down, right? This is the problem that you have in these particular situations when you are in an in-game with king and a pawn that's trying to promote. If you allow the opponent to place a check on you while it's moving out of the way, then you have to give up your rook for that pawn. So you literally have rook to g1 with check. It doesn't matter what white does. If white goes here, white goes here. You are promoting this pawn. And now the queen is going to be, so let's just say, for example, you do this, right? You're going to queen, right? Now the rook has to take on a1 because now this queen is protecting this rook and you're literally just down an entire piece. So the rook is going to have to give up and you got a rook, and then now you have a completely one in game. So that is something, I'm not sure how many of you guys out there know that, but that's something you have to be kind of careful about. And that was something when I saw this exact position, I wanted to try to create a situation to point that out for you. But we do see the move f4. Of course, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is not falling for any of that, like, trickery stuff. This is like really basic, pawn promotion, rook and pawn versus king type in-game stuff here. We do see the move king up to g8. We got rook up to a8 with check. The king goes down to g7. We see rook to a6. King goes back to g8. Rook to a8 with check. King to g7. And then rook to a6. And we have drawn the game by threefold repetition. So I appreciate everybody very much. Merci beaucoup. Maraming salamat. And I will see you guys next time.